As the mourners sat in solemn silence, the stillness was shattered by a sudden bark. Rex, the loyal German shepherd, stood rigid at the foot of the coffin, his voice echoing through the chapel. At first, people thought it was grief, a dog mourning his fallen partner. But then his barks grew frantic sharp, filled with a desperation that made every heart skip. The air thickened, whispers spreading like wildfire. Something was wrong. This wasn't sorrow, it was a warning. Eyes turned to the casket, and in that moment, every soul in the room felt it. The dog was trying to save something. The funeral home was draped in quiet reverence, as friends, family, and fellow officers gathered to honor Officer Daniel Granger, a hero, a husband and a man whose courage had touched many lives. At the base of the polished wooden casket sat Rex Daniels' steadfast canine partner, clad in his black vest with the bold white letters spelling police. But unlike the calm dignity of the room, Rex couldn't be still. A soft whine escaped his throat, his ears twitching as if catching a sound no one else could hear. He let out a gentle bark, almost pleading, drawing a few sympathetic smiles from those who assumed it was grief. Yet as his amber eyes locked on the casket, something in his posture shifted. His tail stiffened, muscles tense, and an unspoken urgency radiated from him. It wasn't the sorrow of a dog saying goodbye. It was the instinct of a guardian sensing that his duty was far from over. At first, the mourners barely noticed Rex's soft growl, mistaking it for the sound of heartbreak. But then his body snapped to attention, muscles rippling beneath his vest as his ears shot forward. In one powerful motion, he rose to all fours, his gaze locked on the casket with an intensity that sent chills through the room. A sharp, desperate bark erupted from his chest, echoing off the chapel walls like a warning siren. Conversations died mid-whisper. The air thickened with unease. The officer beside him tugged the leash gently, murmuring to calm him. But Rex wouldn't yield. Instead, he lunged forward, paws scraping against the polished wood, as if trying to dig through it. Murmurs spread like ripples in water. Something was wrong. The widow's trembling hand flew to her mouth, her heart pounding with dread and hope she couldn't name. Veteran officers in the back exchanged tense glances. They had seen that look before. This wasn't grief. It was a signal. A cry of fierce alertness only a trained K-9 could give. And in that moment, the room shifted from mourning to suspense, every eye fixed on the loyal dog who seemed to be protecting something or someone still hidden within the coffin. Rex's frantic barks suddenly changed, melting into a low whine as he began circling the casket, nose pressed against the wood as if guided by something unseen. His paws tapped softly at one spot over and over until Officer Bryant knelt beside him, confusion tightening his chest. Then, beneath the hush of the chapel, a sound slipped through, a faint, muffled cry. The world seemed to stop. Bryant's face drained of color as he met the funeral director's wide eyes. "Open it." Now his voice was sharp, urgent, leaving no room for hesitation. Gasps rippled like a wave as the lid creaked open. And there, nestled under Daniel's folded hands, was a tiny, trembling, newborn puppy, its fragile body stirring against the officer's cold uniform. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The sacred silence was shattered only by Rex's soft whimper as his tail wagged cautiously, his protective gaze never leaving the pup. It was as if the air itself held its breath, suspended between grief and an unthinkable miracle. Tears blurred Bryant's vision as he gently lifted the shivering bundle, his hands shaking. This wasn't just luck. This was a message, a promise from a fallen hero, carried out by the partner who refused to let life slip away. As Bryant carefully cradled the fragile puppy, something slipped from beneath Daniel's jacket, a folded piece of paper, edges worn ink smudged by time and intent. His breath caught as he recognized Daniel's handwriting. With trembling fingers, he opened it, and the words felt like they carried the weight of a soul. "If anything happens to me, please take care of them." The room froze. "Them," Bryant echoed, voice cracking, as every eye turned to the tiny life stirring in his hands. Rex stepped forward, gently nudging the pup with his nose and letting out a soft, confirming bark, as if to say, "This is what I've been protecting all along." In that moment, it became clear Daniel hadn't just trained Rex to follow commands. He had entrusted him with a purpose beyond death. Tears blurred the chapel as grief transformed into awe. Rex hadn't barked in sorrow. He had barked because life still remained. The folded letter in Bryant's hand trembled as if it carried the weight of Daniel's final breath. The room was so quiet you could hear the paper crackle when he unfolded it. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home." A collective gasp rippled through the mourners. Even the priest stepped back, stunned by the eerie foresight in those words. Bryant's voice faltered as he continued, "But if Rex is still with you, and if by some miracle she made it too, please know this wasn't an accident. I knew she was coming." Amanda covered her mouth, tears falling freely as if Daniel himself were speaking to her. The letter revealed everything: Rex staying by Daniel's side through the cold, refusing to leave even when he could have saved himself, guarding not just his partner's body, but the tiny unborn life resting against him. "When I closed my eyes," Bryant read, his voice breaking, "I only hoped someone would hear him bark." And they had. That bark wasn't grief. It was a plea, a cry of love that crossed the line between life and death. Daniel's last mission had never been about himself. It was about saving the fragile heartbeat he barely met, and Rex had made sure that heartbeat lived. Later that evening, the precinct's K-9 office was wrapped in an unearthly stillness. The tiny puppy lay bundled in a soft blanket, its fragile chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. A nurse, her eyes shimmering, whispered, "It's a miracle," as if speaking louder might shatter it. Beside the crib, Rex sat motionless, no longer the frantic protector from the funeral, but a guardian who had fulfilled his promise. His amber eyes never left the pup. His massive frame curled slightly, as though his very body could shield the newborn from the world. Officers passed the doorway, each slowing to take in the sight-hardened men and women who had seen too much, now blinking back tears at something so pure. When Amanda stepped into the room clutching Daniel's letter, her knees nearly gave way. She knelt beside Rex, her hand trembling as it found his head. He knew, she whispered through sobs. He knew you'd be here for her. Rex leaned into her touch, silent and steady. Amanda gazed down at the pup, voice breaking. She'll grow up knowing who her father was, and the dog who saved her life. In that moment, grief turned into purpose. Rex hadn't just lost his partner. He had found the reason to keep living. Life has a way of reminding us that love and loyalty can outlast even death. Rex's story teaches us that true devotion is not just about companionship, but about carrying on the mission of someone we love when they can no longer do it themselves. For older generations, this resonates deeply. We have all experienced loss, yet we also know the quiet strength it takes to keep protecting what matters. The little puppy in the coffin was more than a miracle. It was a symbol of hope, of life continuing where we least expect it, In our own lives, we may face moments of grief where everything feels final. But like Rex, we can choose to honor those we've lost by safeguarding the love they left behind. Whether it's family memories or lessons passed down, what we protect becomes our legacy. This story reminds us, even in our darkest moments, there can be a purpose waiting to be found, and sometimes it's love that leads us to it.